1, 2, 3, yeah! This is Amari Purple Talk. Yes. Welcome to episode 95 of Amari Purple Talk, a podcast where I share my thoughts on the Prince musical singularity. I'm Richard Cole, Imaginationist, comic book myth builder, and the Vic Sage of Funk. Thank you once again for tuning in. Please leave your comments in the comment section below, and please download on your favorite podcast platform. If you're listening on YouTube, please like and subscribe. And please continue to send your questions or topic suggestions for Amari Purple Talk. And how you can do that is by clicking the link in the show notes below, either the website link for Amari Communications or by following me on Twitter at RichardCole_now using the hashtag Amari Purple Talk. And your topic or question might just be read in a future episode. All right, and with that out of the way, let's get it started. All right, so today, June 28th, 2021, once again, back is the incredible Prince Twitter thread, or hashtag Prince Twitter thread. And this thread subject will be the one and only Paisley Park album by Jill Jones. And kicking it all off today and tomorrow with the introductions will be DJ UMB, and then followed by that on July 1st. The first lead-off track and the first single from that album, which was Mia Boca, and that will get a Twitter thesis by Rhonda Nicole. That's at Rhonda Nicole on Twitter. So check it out. And actually, the next week, July 7th, I will be talking about that track's B-side, 77 Bleecker Street. Very personal B-side favorite of mine from that album. So look for that on July 7th. And again, that will be from at RichardCole_now, or just search by writing hashtag Prince Twitter thread. So once again, thanks to DJ UMB and Edgar Cruz for inviting me to participate. Once again, I always have a ball doing these Twitter thread. So once again, thank you. And like I said, everyone check it out. All right. So, yep, lots of Prince stuff going on. There's some Prince related stuff that's been going on in the last week or so. We're kind of getting down to the last few days of the month-long Sirius XM radio, devoting an entire channel to Prince for the month. That's starting to wind down in the next few days. Let's see, what else has been going on? Anticipation for Welcome to America. There's news of the Story of Prince podcast. They will be doing a series of episodes later in July, prior to the album's release, discussing the creation of that album. So excited to hear that as well. Let's see, it's good to see and hear Morris Day. Thankfully they reached out, Rhino Records reached out to Morris Day after he made it known, like, hey, how can you do a Time reissue and not include me or the fellas or anything? So he's been doing a lot of promotion in advance of the the Times debut 40th anniversary release. So very excited for this album, even more because I was excited when it was announced. Disappointed that they left him out of it, but since that's all been resolved, I'm once again hyped. Check out Questlove Supreme, that podcast. There is an interview with Morris Day. Probably out of all the press junkets, this one has to be my favorite because Questlove, he'll dive deep. This is for the musicians that are fans of the time. These are for fans of the time in general, or fans of Morris Day. And this clarifies a lot of stuff in regards to how those albums were created. And that's definitely what was needed, was input from someone that was actually involved that wasn't Prince. So definitely check that out. 2 hours of just enjoyment. So check it out. And let's see what else has been going on. I've been listening to Jesse, I guess over the last couple of weeks, on his social media, dropped some demos from his first solo album. And that's some funky stuff. I mean, the Jesse Johnson's Review, that album, great, strong debut album. But I mean, the demos, they sound, there was Be Your Man, that was one demo that was dropped, which was actually recorded around 1982, 83. And then there was the demo for Can You Help Me, which had more of a rock edge to it. That was the intent. Played it for John McClain at A&M Records. And, record executives, you know how it goes. Oh, we got to make this more radio friendly. We got to turn it more into a song that can, get on the charts or whatever, was discussed. So that's why we have the version that ended up on the album, which is still a great song. A great song is a great song no matter how it's presented. But to hear the track how it was intended, if it came out like that would have, I think it would have been taking Jesse's career in a whole different vein, because you get to hear him flex on the guitar. And as much as I love that debut album, one of my expectations before finally hearing it was that, man, okay, we're going to get Jesse, we're going to get some hellified rock guitar. And it was very minimal. It was heavy on funk, which was cool. And it had a couple of good ballads on it too. But just to me, that was the one element that was missing because of what we now, we knew Jesse from the time and what he was able to bring on a lot of his later records. His later albums, the ability to flex those guitar muscles. So, it was nice to hear those demos. So, check out his social media, search those out, give it a listen. Some great stuff there too. And I know I'm forgetting a few things. I think since the last episode, I did receive The Truth, my Record Store Day purchase online. Because, my local record store, they didn't have a copy. So I went ahead and ordered it online and finally received it just this past week. And what I'll do at some point, so be on the lookout on the Amari Communications YouTube channel for, at some point, look for my not reissued vinyl, but Record Store Day vinyl version versus the original CD version. So I'll do a special video on that, hopefully in the next maybe week or two. So look out for that. And probably something similar for the Times debut re-release. So that vinyl, I hear that's been remastered. some of the things. Not, I don't think I've officially heard it, but I think the consensus is that it's been remastered. There is a track, advanced track for the single version of Cool that's out. Check it out on your favorite streaming platform. I know Apple has sort of stepped up its game, but my go-to now is this streaming service called it's Qbuzz or Qbuzz, and they specialize, and this is something that Apple has just recently started to do, having everything in lossless audio, spatial audio, so it sounds great like in Dolby Atmos. But I don't think it's available for every single album as of right now. But even though they've started competing, Qbuzz is, to me, better. I was going to actually renew my subscription to Tidal, because to me that was the dominant one as far as sound quality. That was just absolutely better in sound quality. But listening to this, because they have not only where you can hear it in 16-bit, it's 24-bit, it's 20-bit, whatever. You got a lot of high resolution albums that are available. Just the other week I listened to Parade. And as far as anything digital, whether it was the original CD, any streaming, including Tidal, this was the best listening experience I've ever had. Now, I'm not on the Qbuzz, because obviously if I was, I'd be pronouncing the name correctly. But, to me, this was the best listening experience. Like I said, I'm not on their payroll or anything like that, or it's not a paid endorsement. This is just one music lover's opinion to how things sound to his ears. So it's pricey as hell. Right now I'm still on the free trial, but to me, I think it's worth it. I think after the trial is over, I'll go ahead and keep it. It's like about $21 a month, yeah. So, and plus I'm going to downsize a lot of the streaming because it's starting to get a little pricey. We cut the cord, here in the Cole household, because that cable bill was just ridiculous. But, when you start adding on Disney Plus and, you start adding on HBO Max and all this other stuff, then eventually you start having more streaming services to where it might as well just have cable all over again. But with that said, kind of mainstream downsizing a lot on that, just to kind of, keep it to the reason why we cut the cord in the first place. But back to Qbuzz, though. I was able to listen to the advanced track for the time, the single version of Cool. And I don't really hear like a remastering or like a remastered version of it. There are a lot of elements that I haven't heard, but of course this is a listening experience through some really decent earbuds. But there is a difference, because I also went on Apple Music, and like I said, they have the lossless audio, so it's at least at minimum 16-bit mastering on that. And yeah, Qbuzz still wins for me, because it's, like I said, you kind of have that more dynamic range in sound. And, there's a few instrumental elements, great separation between the lead and the background vocals. So it has a kind of a lift that makes me excited to hear the entire album and the, additional singles that'll make up the bonus LP of that. So I'm looking forward to it and even more excited now. Also, too, hearing Morris on the various podcasts and interviews talking about the recording of the album. So I'm more hyped for it now than I was sort of at the beginning. Like I said, when it was kind of leaked that, Morris wasn't involved in any of the promotion or the packaging or things of that nature. But now that that has been resolved and we've heard an advanced track, perfect, excited for it. Can't wait. Other than that, yeah, like I said, there's not anything else, but like I said, just all this hype and buzz. Like I said, we got Welcome to America. That's a month and a few days out. We've got, what else? Yeah, The Time. I don't know what else has been going on. I know we got the anniversary of Under the Cherry Moon. That's coming up in a few days. Of course, no, reissue of the movie. No reissue on Blu-ray. Nothing in color. No Parade box set on the horizon. I know we're still in the buzz of Dwayne Tudor's book, The Parade Sign of the Times Era Sessions. Like I said, get a physical copy, purchase a physical copy. Now, if you're buying a copy for someone as a gift, that's cool too. But by all means, support the book. That way we can get a third book, That's kind of how things work. You have to see that the book is doing well, and selling well. So that it's like, oh, there's demand for more of this material. And same thing with the stuff from the estate, support it. If it's even, if it's not your favorite album, it's not your favorite album, but, don't make it bad for people that either love that particular album or just curious to hear what a particular album sounds like. So, because that'll keep the doors open for your favorite album to get a reissue, or your favorite unreleased project to get a release, or something special on Record Store Day, whatever. We'll show some support and love and be unified as a Prince musical singularity. And with all of that out of the way, let's go ahead and dive into our topic or topics. Now, hence the title of this episode, which is Talking All That Jazz, which, as I was reading the topic suggestions for the show, just happened to rediscover Stetson Sonic. Now, for those of you who don't know who Stetson Sonic is, before the Roots, years before the Roots, Stetson Sonic was a hip-hop crew that used live instruments. And a lot of the members splintered off to do a lot of great things in hip-hop. Daddy-O had a very successful solo career. DJ Prince Paul became the premier, not only DJ, but producer of a lot of classics. A lot of De La Soul, to name one. But, basically hip-hop as you knew it in the late 80s that had Prince Paul's stamp on it, by all means, go check it out. But Stetson Sonic, among their hits, was a track called Talking All That Jazz. So, if you haven't heard it, check it out. But a lot of hip-hop heads know what I'm talking about. So, just kind of give a little props to them, because, like I said, it was kind of symmetry. Because it was like, yeah, just talking all that Stetson Sonic. I had to go jump back onto, online and find the album. And relive those thrilling days of yesteryear, known as 1988. So that will be the topic for this week's episode. It'll all be jazz related. And now we're going to start with our first topic, which was submitted by a longtime listener of Amari Purple Talk, and that is Stephanie Mills. And Stephanie writes, how would you like to see Prince's legacy showcased in a positive way? I would like to see it shown in jazz, poetry, art, and fashion. I would like an exhibit that had all of these things in one. Okay, so thanks very much, Stephanie, for submitting that topic or topic suggestion. And basically, are we talking about having Paisley Park do something as an exhibit, or having, say, the estate, license Prince's music for something that lends itself in those fields? Or, I guess there's a lot of ways you could do it. I'm not really big on tribute albums or tribute bands per se, but I would say, if you're going to do something that would, say, honor his legacy. Now, what I would like to see, maybe it doesn't integrate all of those elements, but it could. And I would say the way to do that would be through, say, music programs in schools. And I know a lot of it has gone the way of the dinosaur, which is a tragedy. But, that's the thing. We may, when it comes to, say, electing presidents and things of that nature, it's one thing to have big voter turnout and vote for those things. But even equally as important, and in a lot of ways sometimes even more important, that does have more of a direct effect than, say, your federal government's, is your vote on the local level. Because those things determine, money for schools, money to, fix your roads, money to whatever, finance community centers, which is another way to go with this as well. If you can't do an in-school thing, then maybe some type of youth center or a community center or an arts center, or through the arts in general, your votes can, have more of an impact or more of a direct influence when it comes to those things. And, then if you can utilize, again, whether it's schools or community centers or arts centers or through the arts, maybe working in conjunction with the estate to kind of come up with something that, where it's not just covering the music, where you can say, okay, let's do jazz interpretations of, say, Purple Rain album. You can have it to where you have the youth sort of express, or artists in general, it doesn't have to be the youth, but I would say, children being the future, to have where they're expressing themselves, to where maybe it can be Prince inspired, not necessarily, again, just covering songs or reinterpreting songs. Again, you can, as far as dance, I know there was a thing with the Joffrey Ballet some decades ago called billboards that took select Prince songs and, sort of did ballet to those numbers. You could do something similar to that, maybe not exactly the same way, but if there's a dancer or dancers that have a particular favorite, or have them go through the catalog and pick out a song they think they can create something for, do it that way. Poetry, poetic interpretations of, what Prince means to them, or the influence. Or again, like I said, just have them express their individual creativity. Give them a platform, but the selling point would be Prince. And, the youth, and doing poetry, speaking on a lot of important things. You can do love poems. You can do, socially conscious poems. Again, they can be inspired by Prince, or you can have that artist, regardless of age, just have that platform to express themselves. Because, I would say right around the 21st century, I think a lot of the musicians that Prince had in his band, they had some kind of creative input, maybe not necessarily to the magnitude of, say, Wendy and Lisa, or Eric Leeds, or Andre Simone, or Morris Day, but he was allowing them to have a platform via being in his band to showcase their virtuosity on, say, their instrument, or in the case of dance, the dancers that he had over the years. I think to honor that memory, I think, something that's Prince inspired. Like I said, you can have it over a multitude of days, or you can maybe cram it into a single day. And you can have it where, like I said, there's jazz interpretations of his music. There's other forms of art. There's, have painters and different type of visual artists, maybe finding something in their environment that's either inspired by a Prince lyric, or based on, you can make it even more abstract, based on how you feel about a certain song and you see a certain visual. Then you can make a photograph or a film about it. So there's many possibilities in which this can work. And again, like I said, it doesn't have to be limited to a certain age, but I think gearing it towards the youth, or having something to where even if it is adults, maybe have something that can generate income, that can finance a music program in the school, or maybe give scholarships to kids that are going to and not just only the arts. The arts are important, and artists are a reflection, or for the most part, artists can hold the mirror to society and force society to take a look at what's happening. But, maybe just field it into scholarships, to where, okay, cool, we can get that black Mark Zuckerberg, male or female, in there, or law school, or medical school, or business school, or something. Just have it go that route. So that would be something I would be interested in seeing, is some type of program, like I said, honoring Prince's legacy, or something in Prince's name. Like I said, that can kind of blend all these elements together and do that. So that's a good idea. So I'd be all for that one. So definitely, Stephanie, thank you for submitting that topic to us. Also, what do you guys think? What ideas would you have that could honor Prince's legacy, beyond just, reissuing an album? Us fans, we love the reissues. The box sets, the deluxe editions, the books. Are there any forms of media or business or, classes that can be taught in school about not just the music business, but business in general, freedom, ownership? Those were just important to Prince as the funk. What ideas would you have? Leave me a comment and let me know your thoughts. And next, we're going to move on to our next topic suggestion. This one comes from Wendell Samuels. And welcome to Amari Purple Talk, Wendell. And Wendell writes, jazz influence of Prince, Madhouse albums, relationship with jazz musicians, the News album, unreleased jazz albums, and Blue Note. So I guess, asking if there was an album intended for the Blue Note record label. And also jazz projects in the vault. So, all right. So we're going to be talking all that jazz in regards to Madhouse and News and unreleased jazz albums. So I'll start with actually the question about Blue Note Records, because way back in the days of the NPG Music Club, back in the days when my call sign was Funkicidal, I believe there was one day Prince posed this question. I think it was not long after Musicology dropped, or it was just before Musicology dropped. And the question was geared towards, like what type of album should I release next? And what label should I go to and try to negotiate a deal for that album? And one of my suggestions, I don't know if he ever read it, but, kind of hope he did. But one of my ideas was to say, maybe do kind of like this soul album, maybe a little bit of funk, and drop that on Motown, because Prince had never been on Motown before. And that would have been cool to see Prince's name and that Motown logo, on an album. And it'd be even cool to see it now, with, because, now that Sony owns, or doesn't own, but they have the rights to everything. So we'll probably never see the light of day. But this could have happened if the deal with Universal had actually gone through. We could have seen a Prince album drop on Motown at some point. But way back in 2004, that was the idea. That was one of my ideas, to say, hey, do a little funk album or soul album, drop that on Motown. Do another album, maybe a more pop mainstream album with a different label. But definitely do a jazz album and drop it on Blue Note Records. I kind of miss those NPG Music Club days. That's why we're so spoiled, because, it felt like we were getting something every other week. If it wasn't an album, it was, here's a single, here's a one-off song. He's like, oh, here's Glass Cutter one day. Oh, and there's Magnificent the next day. Oh, whoa, wait a minute. There's this, 4 songs taken from an after show at Paisley Park. So So, we're spoiled. That's why, we get a box set, 8 CDs, of stuff, good stuff. And then we're like, what's next? What's next? We're fiending, like, okay, gotta get another hit. It's like, the Public Enemy track. Oh, please, oh, please, oh, please. Just give me just one more hit. It's like more Prince. We need more Prince. Yeah, so, yeah, so those were some fun days. But yeah, that suggestion with the Blue Note, again, like I said, Sony has all the distribution and everything now. I don't know if Blue Note has been absorbed. Let me get my book, Confessions of a Record Producer. This is written by Moses Avalon. He also has a website as well. So actually, I bought this book, first bought it in the early 2000s, around 2002. I bought it. There was an updated version that I bought around 2007, which is this one that I have here. But in the back of this book, at the time when there were 6 big distributors in the music industry, and it has a breakdown of those huge corporations as well as the many subsidiaries. A lot of them used to be independent labels that were just rocking the industry, whether it was in the 40s, the 50s, the 60s, even the 70s and 80s. And then after that, like I said, these big corporations, a lot of them didn't know anything about, and still don't know anything about the music, about music. Back in the day, a lot of these record companies, even the big ones, had people running it that knew music. They were fans of music. But I'm looking through here to see where Blue Note Records falls into this category. If I don't see it immediately in this book, because it may have still been totally independent around this time. So still looking, see everything blue but Blue Note. So I'm even, let's see, going through Time Warner. Of course, I didn't figure it was with them anyway. Seagram's, MCA. There's Blue Thumb, still no Blue Note. And then there's Sony. Let's see, they haven't absorbed them at that time. Aha! All right, so as of 2006, let's see, Blue Note ended up being a subsidiary of EMI Records, and I know that as of a few years ago, EMI Records has been absorbed by the Universal Music Group. Yep, so it is now under Universal Music's control. So yeah, see, once again, back in the day, or not back in the day, but if Universal had retained or was able to gain the distribution rights from the estate, if it hadn't been for Warner Brothers saying, hold up, nope, we made a contract with Prince, was still with us, gotta honor it, if that wasn't a factor, then yeah, you would probably see some Prince jazz influenced stuff that would pop up on Blue Note, actually. So, you know, not only Blue Note Records, but also, I mean, Prince's history with jazz, period. The classic story. His dad was a jazz musician, um, had his own band, the Prince Rogers Trio, to which, when Prince was born, named his son after the band because he just envisioned his son doing greater things than he could accomplish, which is what all of us as parents, think inwardly. Like, hey, kid's going to do better than what I was doing. And, you hear sort of a debate within the Prince musical singularity where, you would read, where Eric Leeds has said, oh, I put Prince on to this album and I put Prince on to that album. And many people taking it like, oh, who is he to say that, his dad was a jazz musician. He would have heard it anyway. Well, I mean, you got to look at it like this, Prince, yeah, when you're young, you hear a lot of music that, your parents are listening to or whatever, and you might take to it right off the bat. You hear a few things early on, but, when you kind of get into that age where you're young and you kind of think what's hip, or you think you're around hip people, especially, you kind of like in your teenage years, you're just really gravitating towards what's happening, I mean, my dad had some jazz records. I remember a lot of Quincy Jones in his record collection. I remember a lot of Nancy Wilson, a lot of couple of older relatives, had some Nancy Wilson, some Dinah Washington, and things like that. While, it's great now. And I didn't have any ill feeling, just other than that, I guess that's what grown-ups listen to. But meanwhile, there's that Jackson 5 record, that's on the radio right now. That's what I'm listening to. Or, there's Stevie Wonder, there's Sly and the Family Stone. And all things being relative. So, like I said, my dad had those, and I've heard things. Grandparents had, whether it was, Louis Armstrong or Dean Martin, that type of stuff, Frank Sinatra, Sammy Davis, those things that they were listening to on the radio, just because I heard it. And like I said, I didn't have any negative feeling towards it. I just didn't think it was, felt like, whatever age, like I said, I'm going to go for the Jackson 5 record. I'm going to go for the, Earth, Wind, and Fire record. I'm going to go for, whatever's happening on the radio. On KATZ, or WSL, or later, preteen to early teen years, KKSFM. Getting into that type of stuff. It didn't qualify me to be an expert on jazz. And probably the same with Prince. It was just that, yeah, he's heard it and he probably had a respect for it, because that's what his dad was doing and he wanted to be as good as his dad. So, yeah, he probably heard a few things. But, when he, you hear, when he went to the record store, it was like, no, he was coming home with James Brown 45s. There's the story in The Beautiful Ones, girl kisses him at a locker, rides his bike to the record store and picks up, the latest Shaka Khan album, Rufus This. So, that's what he was geared towards, or Santana, or, Larry Graham Central Station. Like I said, he had about respect for it. But when you get into that parade era, then yeah, you're around some people, or even before then, you've had, you're around other musicians, and there's that sort of cultural exchange. Not just jazz, but just other, whether it's other music in general, whether it's reggae or whether it's blues. I'm sure all of you, whether you're a musician or not, somebody turned you on to a particular record that, it may have been a genre that, again, it could have been something in your parents' home. For a lot of us, again, musician or no, college becomes the biggest cultural exchange. There's high school where, you kind of think things are going on the tip, or even preteen. Parliament Funkadelic, for me, as of 1977, they'd been around for years. But, it was a friend of mine in grade school that, was like, man, you got to listen to the Pinocchio Theory. That's what's hip. That's what's happening. You have to check that out. Like I said, I was in my little Jackson 5, Earth, Wind and Fire, Stevie Wonder, Beatles. That was my sort of realm. Like I said, listen to the radio a lot, But, like I said, P-Funk just wasn't in my realm. But, you have somebody, bam, like, you got to go get this. And went and got Bootsy's Pinocchio Theory. And, the whole field of research was open then. And then later, right after that, Flashlight became a big hit. Well, actually, Bob Gun was the first single from Funkadelic. And to see this was all connected, with George Clinton, like, oh, okay, well, he produced Bootsy. Cool. Had picked up Pinocchio Theory. Then that sort of triple threat. Yeah, it was Flashlight. Then there was Bootzilla and Hollywood Squares. And then there was, like, a few months later, then here comes, One Nation Under a Groove. That triple threat. And a Funketeer was born. And just those being kind of the gateway, kind of reached back, had a relative that had Mothership Connection, so got to hear that and catch up, which I did. I remember Tear the Roof Off the Sucker, I do remember that, but it wasn't fully on my radar. It was like, okay, this was a song I hear on the radio a lot, but, like I said, it took, a friend who has your ear, your influence, to say, hey, you got to listen to this record. He put me onto that record, Heatwave's Boogie Nights, so thanks to him, I became a fan of both of those groups. And, then I had another friend that, where he was like, he was hip to the whole Westbound era. He was the one that put me on to things like Cosmic Slop and all of that. So, so that kind of space between 11 and about 13, 14, my whole P-Funk knowledge had increased. So some things I discovered on my own, but then some things that, hey, I was aware of what was happening, but it was like, hey, no, but have you heard this album? I know you got that album, but have you heard this album? And I think that's just what it comes down to. It's like, yeah, he was aware of jazz. Yeah, he was aware of this and that, or this group or that musician. But it was like, no, but check out this album. Where was the one he recommended, the Duke Ellington album, Ellington at Newport. Eric Leeds put him on to that album. Yeah, of course Prince knew who Duke Ellington was, but he hadn't heard that album. And when he heard that album, then that made a difference, and that's just how it is. Again, whether you're a musician or not a musician, when you have friends or, like I said, if you are a musician, you're around other musicians or just people that love music in general. I had been to Jamaica at 13. I've heard reggae music, but it wasn't until college, again, a couple of friends in college years, it was like big, huge into reggae. It was like, okay, I got to check this out. Or, whatever it is, you're in certain relationships, you just exchange, musical, just kind of like, oh, she's into that record. Oh, okay, cool. That's a nice record. Or, hey, have you heard this record? And things of that nature. So it's like, yeah, you're aware of it. But hey, it's fun. I always thought it was fun to, and that's what this show is about. That's what other shows are about. And the Prince symposiums, that's what those things are about. It's like, we share our love of an artist, again, who's had the luxury of decades of just diverse musical taste and challenging our expectations. That was the beauty of it. For me, jazz, like I said, it was there. I knew what it was. I just wasn't going to go out and buy it. And again, hearing Madhouse, that raised my expectations. Even before then, listening to I don't know, I didn't think Yes by the Family was jazz. To me, it was just funky. It was just like funk with a saxophone. It was no different than James Brown to me. Yes, but like Susanna's Pajamas, that was more jazz to me. And it was like, oh, this is nice. And I remember I had a video production teacher, and one of the assignments was to do a talk show, and I guess I was project leader on that one, and just like, oh, you got to use the theme song, and I didn't have the equipment or anything to do one myself or the time to do one myself. So it was like, oh, let me go through and see. So it's like, oh, let me find something instrumental. I didn't have a lot of instrumental music, nothing that was mellow enough to be a theme show for a talk show. And, just stumbled upon Susanna's Pajamas and was like, oh, this is good enough. I'll use that. And so, so I bring it to the class, and then when it's time to, edit the project and put the music on for the overdubs, everything, and he's like, what's this? And I'm like, this is The Family, Prince produces, and The Family, and it's called Susanna's Pajamas. I mean, he loved that track. I ended up making a cassette tape, I think of the whole album for him for that, but he loved that track. And see, there you have it. The whole field of research is open, and there you have it. But for me, it took the Madhouse records for me to go like, oh, well, jazz is okay. Jazz is all right. Because also, before then, you had people like Wynton Marsalis that was just dissing Prince, dissing Michael Jackson, and dissing pop music in general, because pop music or rock music, it gets all this attention, it gets all this, love from critics. You kind of get this thing to where oh, Van Halen is the greatest of all time, or Eric Clapton is the greatest of all time, and they can just, and they kind of get all this praise and recognition, and you look back and it's like, oh, these groups are great, which they are, but Louis Armstrong was great too. Robert Johnson was great too. And while you have people like the Rolling Stones that will acknowledge that, yeah, Robert Johnson was, the Cat. Muddy Waters was great. The mainstream in general, it's like it dismisses what came before, or what's still relevant now. Like, yeah, the blues should be remembered more now, should get a lot more attention. Jazz should get a lot more attention than, pop, going back to the thing about honoring Prince's legacy, exposing yourself to those styles of music. It's all relevant, and it shouldn't be limited to just a handful of people. Granted, music is subjective, but, like I said, I remember those days when he was kind of dissonant. At least that was my opinion of it. You'd see him on television, or maybe somebody in print misquoted him or something, but it was kind of like, oh, well, screw jazz then. If this is what this guy thinks, saying the hell with my, why is he hating? You do jazz, these guys are doing pop. It's two different things. But, as you get older, like I said, when Madhouse dropped, and it was like, oh, okay, well, jazz is okay. And so kind of I went back and got the Miles Davis album, You're Under Arrest, which you see, in the background of Under the Cherry Moon in that movie. And from there, I got into Kind of Blue. And then I kind of later on, years later, jumped ahead to kind of the funk period, the Bitches Brew, How Do I Still Have to Hear. That's one Eric Leeds is a big fan of. I have to go and seek that out and listen to it. But On the Corner, that's a CD that I've had for quite a while. So, just kind of jumping around. Oh, and there's now, it just got released on Friday, which it was Miles Davis. It's live. And it's called, let's see, live at, Vienna Jazz Festival. This was one I've read a lot about, heard about, just kind of rumblings within the Prince musical singularity. This one is noted for 2 Prince tracks, of which originally they were intended for the original version of Madhouse 24. And those 2 songs are Penetration and Jailbait. So Miles does live covers of these. I've only had time to listen to the track Penetration. I love it. I've got like a bootleg of the Madhouse version of those. But remember, those were later reworked by Eric Leeds for the Times Squared album. So, which is an album that definitely deserves a reissue, vinyl, CD, whatever. But as far as the as far as the Miles Davis album, this was from 1991 originally. Like I said, it just got an official release this past Friday. But it's one, especially if you're a Prince fan, if this is one that you've heard about but haven't heard, check it out. I'm going to have to pick up a physical copy of this at some point. But like I said, go to your favorite streaming service and kind of give it a listen. But I'm going to give it a full listen from beginning to end on it, because it kind of really covers his late 80s period well, and the addition of the 2 Prince tracks, which begs to hint that, is there a secret Miles Davis album written and or produced by Prince? A lot of people don't think so. Obviously, it may not have been done at Paisley Park, but as a theory, I will guess that since Prince did submit quite a few tracks to Miles, I wonder if he worked on it, say, did some overdubs, or maybe re-recorded it with a lot of different musicians, and those tracks may be in a vault somewhere. And could that be the secret album that Prince referenced in an interview back in 1998? Could be. Could be. But definitely check it out. So let's see. Merci. Okay, so it's, I guess it's French. So any French listeners of Amari Purple Talk, please educate me on the pronunciation here. So I'm going to go with Live at Vienne, since it's French and not Vienna. So, like I said, just let me know the correct pronunciation of it. But definitely check this album out. So especially if you're a fan of Miles Davis, and definitely if you're a fan of Prince. There's 2 Prince tracks, brand, well, not new to us, but we get to hear these 2 versions finally. So go check it out. And as far as other jazz works, there's News, which I was listening to in preparation for this episode. Kind of researching that album. A lot of critics dissed this album, and I'm like, you who are you guys? Name somebody that can record an album like this in a single day, like this album was. Now, for a lot of us, it's probably like an extension of Madhouse, and probably the closest extension to Madhouse than a lot of, say, Prince attempts at jazz. Even the, sort of 1994 version of Madhouse 24. To me, this is the closest to that. And I enjoy it. I mean, no, it's not dance floor grooves. No, it's not a concept album. Could there be something esoteric going on with it? Maybe. But you know what? As an album, just to sit back and listen to, and just listen to, musicians just having a little fun in the studio. I mean, again, recorded in a single day, off the top of the dome like that. It's all improv. So, granted, this isn't Thelonious Monk. Granted, this isn't Duke Ellington. Granted, it's not, whoever the best jazz improvisationists in music history are. But, give it up to somebody like Prince for even attempting to do it. And this isn't the first time. I mean, there's the Flesh sessions. There's a lot of ground to cover when it comes to Prince and his relationship with jazz and, or jazz musicians. Yeah, granted, Miles Davis is probably the big go-to. But let's not forget Maceo Parker. Yeah, granted, we know his legendary status as James Brown's saxophone player. But, a lot of James Brown's musicians had roots in jazz. They were trained musicians, a lot of them. But I think maybe because of that, people like Maceo were able to interpret James' music, or able to kind of bring what their understanding is to the table to enhance a lot of James Brown's ideas. And like I say, Maceo was definitely one of the key figures in that equation. Fred Wesley is another one. But they were all jazz musicians. And to me, I would say, Maceo's probably best represented. Kind of One Night Alone era Prince. But, it's sad that, again, we didn't get something that has like either a full collaboration for the duration of an album, or even, I would say, just something to where, where same thing with Miles. Prince gave Miles a bunch of tracks. Prince should have, could have given Maceo some tracks. And maybe that, there's some material that exists that we have yet to hear. I don't think anybody's brought up that question. Everybody's been focused on, is there a secret Miles Davis album somewhere? Is there enough tracks to make a secret Prince Maceo album, or even Najee? Kind of as me and other, I would say one other musician buddy of mine, as we were expanding into jazz, or listening to jazz anyway, the name Najee comes to play, because kind of late 80s into the 90s, he was throwing down with sort of that kind of fusion sound, that you hear on Quiet Storms every now and then. And he was good too. So to see him jamming with Prince, one of my favorite moments with Najee in that band was that Tonight Show appearance. It was the second night. It was in promotion of Rainbow Children. Remember, they did The Work the first night. Second night that Prince was on, they did a cover of Ballad of Dorothy Parker. And that arrangement, I love it. He's on a lot of the One Night Alone live. His sax playing. Some of it's Najee, or it's Najee, Maceo, Eric Leeds, or maybe they traded off. I don't know the whole in and out of the lineup, but at that time. But, Najee is another jazz musician that, you should check out. Check out his solo work. And again, is there a secret Prince Najee album that exists? Did Prince write any cuts for Najee for a solo project? Who knows? It might be something I might look into as far as like later Najee. Like I said, I'm more familiar with the earlier stuff from, the 80s and the 90s. But I really haven't heard a lot of stuff from, say maybe last, 2 decades or so. So again, somebody we should all check out and, see what's happening with him now. And then there's other ones, Adrian Crutchfield, I believe. Let's see, was that Black is the New Black? That still has to see the light of day. That's a project I'm anxious to hear. What was the direction on that? I would say, if you're going to do unreleased vaults, that should be the next. Cool, we're getting Welcome to America. I do think that is something, given the times that we live in, whether it was a lot of stuff was going on back in 2011 too, but I would say just like what's going on, it's the album that keeps holding that mirror up to us. Even though we didn't get to have the mirror put up to us with this album in 2011, but the fact that it exists with that intention, it's one of those that, hopefully we won't need it 20 years from now, but, I got a feeling that that's one we'll probably end up going back to in 20 years' time for something, But it's cool we're getting that. But I think the next one should be Black is the New Black. Really, let's finally get a taste of if there's something finished. And if it's something in that vein, Black is the New Black, how many songs were finished for it? Let's get that in. And, are there jazz elements to it? Or jazz influence or some type of fusion with the funk or soul, or was Prince gonna hit us with something totally new that nobody else has done before? I would like to hear it and see. But back to the jazz, there is quite a few. Going back in time, just having read the Parade Sign of the Times book, a couple episodes we discussed the possibility of the Flesh album. Again, where it was most of it off the top of the dome. It was just, musicians jamming, having a good time. And a bunch of tracks were recorded for that over the course of some days. And he gave it to Eric Leeds to say, hey, sequence an album for me of this. And Eric has some good ideas. It's like, hey, if we're going to do this for vinyl, this is how the order of songs is going to be. If we're doing this for CD, then we're going to switch up the order for it. And I would like to see that. I know I said before, put out the vinyl with that sequence, put out the CD with the other sequence. But, go ahead, just put it out as a deluxe edition. The CD and the vinyl in one package. Maybe a couple of discs, that would have the whole thing in its entirety. But definitely, the main body of it would be, Eric Leeds curating it with his planned sequencing, the way he remixed it, for possible release. But that is something I would definitely love to see. Again, it's that sort of precursor to Madhouse. It works. It's sort of that bridge between The Family and Madhouse, a lot of it, in my opinion. But yeah, that's something I would like to see get, whether it's a record store day release or an independent release, it would be something different. But hey, if the estate is listening, definitely get Eric Leeds on the phone and bring him back into the studio and have him oversee the remaster, or, get his input on, okay, well, this is how he wanted it sequenced or whatever. Just, I'd like to hear it, officially, that is. I've heard it unofficially, but I want an official release on it, folks. So yeah, I mean, I think it's an important part of, his career. It's easy to talk about the guitar stuff, the rock guitar, the Santana influence versus Hendrix influence. It's easy to talk about the funk. It's easy to talk about the ballads. We do, whether it's us or any other show or blog or Twitter thread, it's easy to go into all of those genres. But, to me, this is one of the unsung periods. It definitely surprises us. Again, music is subjective. So what, some people love the Madhouse stuff, but maybe not necessarily like news, or may not necessarily love the Rainbow Children era or One Night Alone era. And there are people that definitely love the One Night Alone era or Rainbow Children era, but, maybe they get Madhouse, maybe they don't. And that's cool too. Me, I enjoy both eras. To me, it's a progression. Like I said, to me, News is that lost Madhouse album, let's see, what are we, 8, 16, 24, what's the next 8, 32, it's like, or in this case, since there were just 4 songs, 28, Madhouse 28, that's, to me, it's a progression of that. To me, the Rainbow Children One Night Alone era goes in a whole nother direction. different than Madhouse, in my opinion. Maybe a lot more jazzier, I would think. To me, like I said, if you listen to Miles' Live Evil, oh, and there's another album that I was listening to. It wasn't Miles Davis. Oh, shoot. What was it? Oh, I'm drawing a blank on it now. But there was an album, too, that I was listening to. It's an older album. Oh, God, I forget which artist it was. But it had that influence on it, too. To me, it all reminded me of Rainbow Children era and One Night Alone era. Oh, damn. I'm drawing a blank on it. What was I listening to? If it doesn't come, maybe hopefully next week I'll have the answer. But anyway, yeah, definitely One Night Alone live. To me, that definitely has that sort of, got a little Santana in there. It's got a little, like I said, that Miles Davis, sort of that early 70s, like I said, Arcada, Live Evil, that kind of vein, that sort of live vein to it. But you can definitely tell a progression, and you can definitely see him getting more comfortable with, say, kind of letting those jazz influence kind of take a precedent in a lot of his work, not only in studio but also live as well. With the feeling of the Madhouse albums, it was kind of that thing of, let's not say it's jazz, because he didn't want to catch any flack, because again, the Wynton Marsalises were going to, go at him over it. But then you had the Branford Marsalises, you've had a lot of other jazz musicians, and a lot of them younger, that were embracing that sort of Madhouse, that was embracing that side of, they thought Prince was a genius anyway, but they were embracing, seeing him embrace that sort of jazz. They heard it, thought it was good, and kind of influential in a way as well. So, but as you get into the later eras, to him be more comfortable with that, and to also align with musicians, both young and old, legends like Maceo and legends like Najee. And then you got younger guys like your Adrian Crutchfields and what's the other one? Mike Phillips, man. Even veterans, Greg Boyer, who had played with P-Funk, before playing with Prince. So, I mean, just to kind of have those people on your team, to have, have them sort of, make the shots that, people weren't recognizing you for early on in your career. I urge everybody to kind of check out that side even more. This topic, is, I don't know, I don't think I was taking it for granted, but, answering these questions, you see me kind of having these moments of, I need to go back and listen to that even some more. Like I said, listening to news. I've always enjoyed this album. Again, like I said, critics, what do they know? Who are these people and why they hating? But yeah, I mean, this is definitely a side of Prince. Like I said, we talk about the funk, we talk about the ballads. Let's talk about the jazz a little bit more. So let's mellow out and listen to some jazz and listen to some jazzy Prince. But what's most important is, what do you think? Do you think this is a genre of Prince that either you're a big fan of, should get more attention to? Are there secret albums in the vault, whether it's Miles Davis or could be Najee or Black is the New Black? Is that jazz? Is it funk? Is it all of the above? Should we, do you want to see those see the light of day? Leave me a topic and let me know your thoughts. So once again, thank you all for tuning in. And again, please, download and listen on your favorite podcast platform. Also like, subscribe, hit that notification bell if you're listening on YouTube. Let's see. Like I said, I'm going to do some comparison videos for YouTube with the truth and the time, definitely. For those that are still waiting for my thoughts on the remaining digital reissues of the Jacksons, besides Triumph, my heart just isn't in it. I'm still going to do it, but my heart isn't in it because honestly, I just feel the Jacksons deserve better. Cool, we're in this digital age. Cool, we got these streaming services. Cool, you've heard me talk about Cubose streaming and just the great listening experiences. But at the end of the day, I'm still a physical media person. I want remastered CDs. I want remastered vinyl. I want liner notes. I want artwork. I need the covers and hold the covers and read the liner notes and put the CD player in the tray and listen, or put the vinyl on the turntable and drop the needle. I really think they deserve a lot better, a whole lot better. But like I said, at the end of the day, the music is still great. So, like I said, I'll get around to doing that video for that soon. But other than that, go out, support Amari Communications, whether that's the tip link through Cash App or purchase Amari merchandise, t-shirts, coffee mugs, still get masks. Things are changing by the minute. Still, we don't know what's going on, but I want all of my listeners, as well as everyone in and out of the Prince musical singularity, to do what you can to be safe and also protect others, even if you're protected. You got a better shot at fighting it off if you've got your vaccination. But for those, for whatever reason, that have not, then, we still got to look out for them too. They got families, or they're loved by somebody, and, there's too many people gone from this planet. So we still got a few more people left on the planet to keep safe and keep ourselves safe and all of that. So again, mugs, t-shirts, masks, water bottles, anything that catches your fancy, whether it's Amari Purple Talk or other Amari merchandise, We Funk t-shirts, The Answer. Falling a little bit behind in that comic book, but going to finish that up so I can get it out to you guys. Again, so be on the lookout for that. And also come back here next week for episode 96 of Amari Purple Talk. And until then, create your day, create your life, and keep it purple and on the one.